this video, I'm going to show you how to make a procedural ripped paper text effect. You can use any font, any paper texture, and this effect will adapt to your text. It's flexible and easy to move around, so let's get started. The first step is to add a fast box blur. Turn up the blur to create a soft expanded look. We don't need detail here, so I'll set the iterations to 1. Next, go to Effect, Color Correction, Levels, Individual Controls. Change the channel to alpha, and slide this arrow down to crush that alpha channel. This gives us a solid shape. What's cool about this is if we turn the blur lower, then you see the outlines of every letter. And if you expand the blur up, they mush together. And we can slide the input black and input white to adjust the edges. Pick whip the input white to the black so they're the same value. I'll leave this around 10. To expand this out, add channel minimax. Change the channel to alpha and increase the radius. This expands the matte even more. And now we can dial in the shape by editing the blur radius, alpha black, and min-max radius. I like that. Let's move on to details. Go to Stylize, Roughen Edges. Turn the scale down to 30 or so to create nice edge definition. Then add Distort, Turbulent Displace. Bring the size way down to add slight ripples and randomness. This adds variety to the edges. And we can leave the amount as is. Finally, let's add a fill and make it white. After this entire effect stack, we need to bring our text back. We can just add CC Composite, and that will show our text on top of everything. And if we edit the text, everything updates in the background. Okay, this is great. Now let's set the texture. I'll bring some ripped paper into our comp here. So how can we apply this paper to our layer? Easy. Duplicate CC Composite and rename this one to Texture. Change top layer to the paper. If we turn off the paper in the background, you can see that the paper texture PNG is now matted to the text. We'll also change this dropdown from Source to Effects and Masks. Because this is all procedural, we can even use text animators. I'll search for Fade and select the Fade Upwards preset. This is going to add a text animator to our text, and with this effect stack, the paper smoothly fades on behind each word. I think it just looks really nice, like ink blots on paper. You can play with other text presets or make your own. But if we move or scale the text layer, the paper won't move with it. Likewise, if we move the paper, the texture behind the text won't follow. This text layer completely ignores any position, scale, rotation adjustments that we make to our paper texture. We could pre-compose the texture, but I want all my flexibility in one comp. Instead of repositioning the paper with the layer's transform properties, we can use a transform effect. Select the paper, reset its transform properties, and go to Effects, Distort, Transform. Now as we scale down or move it around using the effect, you'll see that reflected on our text layer. So if I want to move my text over here, then our paper, now we have the controls to adjust both on the fly. Solo the paper and add the Generate Circle effect. Change the blending mode to normal so it shows up on the paper. Move it above Transform, and that sets the circle right in the middle of the paper. This is temporary, but it lets us visualize the anchor point of our paper as we scale or rotate this around. I want to control the paper with a null object instead. So let's open up the transform properties for our null, and then twirl open the effects on our texture. First we can link the paper's opacity to the null's opacity. I'll leave that at 100 so we can see it. We'll link the rotation, and then link the scale, and now the null drives the paper texture. I'll go ahead and pick whip the position, and immediately you see that's not going to work. They're offset because our texture is a different size from our composition, leading to the points on these two different layers existing in different space. Now we don't have time to go into all the details of comp space and layer space, fromComp and toComp, but Jake Bartlett has a fantastic video on it. So if you want a deep dive, go watch his video. For now, you can just copy my setup. In the position expression, just write fromComp, parentheses, and then move the position property into the parentheses. That is going to do all of the position math behind the scenes that we want, and now the paper effect correctly follows our null object. This next step is optional. If we want to parent the null to any other layer, for example the text, our paper flies off into space again. I'm going to fix this with an if-else statement that checks if the null has a parent or not. Write const target layer equals and pick whip the null. Then write if parentheses target layer dot has parent close parentheses and then add brackets. Inside the brackets write fromComp parentheses target layer dot toComp parentheses target layer dot anchor point. This fixes our position problem and pins to our null object. Then write else bracket fromComp parentheses target layer dot position. So now we're good no matter the parenting on the null. Just don't parent the paper to anything. We can delete the circle because we don't need it anymore. Let's unsolo our layers, then turn off the eyeball on the background layer and lock it, because we can control all the transforms from our null. When I change this text, the paper automatically appears around it. If the texture is too small or needs to be repositioned, we can just move that null and everything seamlessly updates. Of course, you can build on top of this. We can add a drop shadow and play with the settings to soften it out. Everything is procedural, super flexible, and smooth to edit. The null is parented to the text so it will follow along, and we still have full procedural control over the text and font. We can even copy this entire effect stack and apply it to other shapes or footage. Let's create a new solid and draw a simple mask with the pen tool. Ctrl V to paste the effects, and it instantly updates with the paper texture. We can move it around, combine masks, and have full control over the paper settings. So this is the effect stack that I like to use for simple ripped paper textures on text. Hope you learned something and enjoyed. Catch you in the next one.